Hey folks, Curtis Stone here. Welcome to this continued series where we look at all the states and provinces in North America and put them through the lens or the context of homesteading and sorting out the good, the bad, and the ugly. So today I've got the great pleasure of doing the great state of California. And I know a lot about California because I spent a lot of the early period of my career teaching people about urban farming in California, from all the way up from Santa Rosa down to San Diego. Rode my bike through the whole California coast. I rode my bike down in, 2009, fall of 2009. I rode my bike from Kelowna all the way down the coast here. Spent most of the time in California. It took me 2.5 months, but I stayed and hung out in places, a lot of places along the way. And so I really understand the geography, the cultural, the economic side of California. I had a business in Carlsbad, California for a number of years. So, I think I know California pretty good. But again, with these videos, take into consideration that I can't talk about everybody and every context. I can only do broad strokes and give you some food for thought and add some nuance as it pertains to my own experiences. But, take it for what it's worth. So, we're going to look at, let's just first talk about the state of California in general, because it is interesting in its geography. So the Central Valley, which is this whole area that runs, a good chunk of the state, is the agricultural belt of North America. It is the primary food grower. It produces the most amount of exports than any other state. And often it competes even with countries, like it competes with Canada alone. Having said that, the whole population of Canada almost exists within Southern California alone. So California is beautiful. It is. The climate is unbelievable, and in much of the state, all the way up from Crescent City down to San Diego, the climate is better than most other places in the United States, hands down. I mean, just even if you're in the most northern regions of California, like Willits or Crescent City or any of these towns up here, it's a lovely climate that's competitive with most of the with the continent at large. What makes it so great is that the prevailing wind is always pushing in from the Pacific Ocean, meaning that there's always a wind down the coast this way. And I experienced this very viscerally when I rode my bike down the West Coast, is I had tailwind the entire way. But I did run across a couple guys who were doing this bike tour as well. They were going the opposite end of me, and they said it was terrible because you're fighting headwind the entire time. However, during the winter time, the wind directions do change, and that provides some interesting climates as well, as that okay, in the warmer years, in the warmer months of the year, the wind is blowing in and down the coast. But in the colder months of the year, so in wintertime for the rest of us, there's a southern wind blowing up from the coast, which is why the Los Angeles Valley is so unique in its climate, is because a warm wind is blowing up, hitting the mountain ranges of the Sierra Nevadas and all this stuff, and it's trapping that heat in Southern California. This is why everybody says the weather in LA is unbelievable. And it is. It's unfucking believable. As a Canadian going down to SoCal in February and being like, man, it's summertime. It's close to it. It's amazing. And so it's no surprise that a lot of people live there. But that, however, is what you really do need to understand about Southern California. This is a population by density map. And just look, LA County, Orange County, San Diego County, just massive. All these counties down here, except when you come inland, are just like through Santa Barbara, everything. It's just so many people concentrated in such a small area. I don't like it. As a prepper, as a homesteader, as somebody who wants to enjoy nature and spend more time in God's creation than in man's creation, I prefer to be closer to God's creation, which is the trees, the forests, the rivers, the lakes, personal space, fresh air, not cars and concrete, right? And that's Southern California. So I pretty much will rule out homesteading in that area altogether. Again, I got to do broad strokes. I know there's some great homesteads in Southern California. I've been to them. There's many. But one thing also about Southern California that you need to understand is that, you've got the best regions are the green regions. Why is that? Well, it's because air and precipitation move in from the ocean, and they hit the high elevation peaks, and then they distribute. So when air moves in and it hits the mountains, it condenses on the mountains because it has a surface area, or there's thermals, and there's reasons why water deposits in mountains. But that's what happens, and that's why this is all green, and that's why this is all brown, is because on this side of the ridge. So if you come down into the topography, you just got to zoom in a little bit. What you can see is that that's your ridge, right? So that's your highest point before a plateau. So the water hits there and it moves down the valley. Some of it comes over this side and it makes its way into tributaries that, say, for in this example, all make their way back down to that San Bernardino. It's not San Bernardino. That's that's the San Bernardino Valley that just comes through and makes its way down back towards the ocean. And that's why this is so dry, because the water never makes it here. And so when you live in places like this in California, you're entirely dependent on a good well, which isn't impossible. You can get a good well, especially, primary water wells you can get up in these areas, that then you can get these little gems. These here, though, which might be on a local aquifer or on a sort of regional agricultural water service, you get these center pivot agriculture in these areas. You don't want to live in here. This is hell on earth. Airport and big ag, forget about it. And it's so damn hot. You don't want to be in that. And so that's why those parts of Southern California I also just rule out in general. And so, broadly speaking, I just rule out all of Southern California. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong. LA, unbelievable, but fuck, there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of there's a cultural, social instability to these places now too. So I just say forget about them. No, they are beautiful. But let's just look, we got to wrap this puppy up at some point. I'm already 7 minutes in. I can go a lot longer, folks, on this one because I know so much about Southern California. And so, you know what, let's just open up our no-goes. Let's just do all the no-goes right there. Okay, so it's pretty much, we talked about Southern California. Okay, it's just too many people, too little space, too little nice land to go around. And then when you get into here, the Badlands, it's inhospitable. It sucks. Again, don't get offended. If I live there and it's paradise, it might be, but just please bear with me for the exercise of just making broad strokes. So we rule all that out. Now, I'm not ruling out Santa Barbara and Malibu and all these places, like unbelievable too, right? Beautiful. You start to get into more beautiful areas, Ventura County, and even when you come into Topanga Canyon and all these lovely, lovely places. Yes, they're beautiful. Pretty premium real estate, though. Difficult to do any homesteading over a couple acres. Even to get an acre in Topanga Canyon or some of these beautiful areas is out here is very, very expensive. So we're gonna just rule them out. I know you can find them. Like this area up in Santa Barbara, this is some of the most beautiful. I would actually say from San Luis Obispo, Pismo, all the way through Santa Barbara, even down close to Ventura before you start getting into the thick, sprawl of Southern California, is God's country. I mean, it is unfucking believable. Also, big fire risk too, though, and so that's a big concern there too, because it's hot and there's forests here, big forests, and there's still some big trees in here, not like there is in Northern California, which we'll talk about, but just beautiful area. This whole coastal region here is unreal. I rode my bike through this whole area here. What's fascinating about this part we're still kind of Southern California here. We are technically. When you come in here is when you get off the coast, how extremely hot it is when you get up into this zones in here. The hottest temperatures I've ever experienced in my life were around here. Where was it in particular? It was coming down into, it's when I made the turn. It's when I made the big turn, and now all this heat that comes up gets trapped here a little bit more because it hits a bit more resistance in those mountains. And so when I came up into the hills from Santa Barbara, I was 50 degrees Celsius. So that I believe that's like 120, 30, something like that Fahrenheit. Extraordinarily hot, dry wind. Whoa, I couldn't even ride my bike. I had to just get into the trees and just hunker down. So extremely hot. But then when you get over the ridges here and you get into the Central Valley, this is why this is an absolute, as far as the world is concerned, you think about world topography, Southern California, Central Valley region of ag is unbelievable what you can do here. You can pretty much grow anything. It's stable. The mountains protect you, gives you a stability in the climate. There's no surprise that it's where it's become such a hub of big ag. But I mean, I would not want to live anywhere in here because it's all conventional big ag. Yes, there's organic farms tucked into the Central Valley, of course. You know, all those big like Earthbound and stuff like that, they all operate in there. They got farms all over in here. But it is toxic. It's unfortunately a paradise that was turned into a toxic environment. But you can get up into the higher hills here in these parts of California and find unbelievable rural properties. I don't think any of the ones we're going to look at today are in there. My team kind of picked these out for me. And I just kind of add my own flavor to it as we kind of go through. But, you know, as you make your way up in California, Sacramento has become a total violent, shitty city. I wouldn't recommend living anywhere near there. No offense to people that do. I'm sure there's pockets, right? San Francisco Bay Area, this is where I spent most of my time in California, actually. And in fact, up in Santa Rosa areas up here, some of the nicest farms in the world are up in these regions. Just beautiful. But still, you got a lot of population density. Again, going to that, you know, map, this is where it picks up again. So even when you leave LA County and you come up through Ventura County and all these places, Monterey, it thins out a little bit. There's a little bit more space, but then it picks up again right when you come into that whole region, the Bay Area. It's just a massive population zone. But also the Bay Area, frankly, in climate sucks. Actually, I think it sucks. I think it's weird. It's like the Mark Twain quote, the great Mark Twain quote is, the coldest winter I ever had was the summer in San Francisco. And it is so bang on correct. It's, you know, you go down to the Bay Area in November through February, for most people in North America, it's like, hey, this is nice. It's mild. It's kind of cool. I can just wear a light windbreaker in the evening. And that is the best clothing of choice in that area, as a windbreaker in the summer and winter, because it's light to carry around and it'll pretty much solve your problem, because most of your problem comes from the humidity and the cool air that moves through the Bay Area at certain times of the day. But it is a neat place to experience, but I find it's quite annoying. When you come into Concord off the Bay Area, totally different climate. More consistent, more consistently warm. Those cold mornings and evenings kind of stay behind this mountain range in the Bay Area, and they stay here. And so you can kind of escape them. But again, I'm just going to, say, forget it. It's so expensive too. The climate's not that great in the Bay Area is a big area. You get out of that in Sacramento. Yes, the climate's a lot nicer. It's more consistent, but it's another hellhole liberal city. So sorry to offend some liberals there, but you'll get over it. So we're gonna just get out of that whole area. But now you come up into these regions of California. It is God's country. The most beautiful place that I've experienced in California, and I've been through the whole coast, is the Big Sur region. This region, this coastline here, is some of the nicest country in the world that I've ever seen, and especially in the United States. This coastline region is unbelievable. If you're lucky enough to be able to get properties up in these mountain ranges, it's some of the nicest, most beautiful country in the world, especially the juxtaposition between the hard, rigid California coastline here, which you can see there's a reason it's not developed, is because it's just so steep. It's not crazy developed like Southern California, because Southern California is an open valley. But some of these places up here are just unbelievable. And you get into these lower hills here, even in the higher hills. It's some of the nicest country in the world. It's just beautiful. Fort Bragg too. This whole area is just lovely. And so let's look at good areas in California. So they're pretty much all going to be in Northern California. Let's just start with this one here, Willits. I actually, when I was woofing, I did this bike tour, and I rode down the whole California coast. But here I came inland for a while, and this would have been October at the time, and it was scorching hot. Actually no, this is earlier in the tour. Well, I left in late August. So yeah, I was here in probably September, and it was scorching hot. It was like hard to imagine. But once I came up into these mountain ranges here in Willits, it was unbelievable. All these badass homesteads off the mountains. The populations are fairly sparse, and it's real off-grid living. It's hardcore. It's the OGs of the illegal cannabis trade that were in some of these counties. And a lot of those homesteads are abandoned, unfortunately. It's kind of sad. And they're just kind of dumps. But you know what? If you look for properties up here, you can find some unbelievable values, because this economy was just bankrupted by the legalization of cannabis. It just completely destroyed the cannabis industry. And so there's all these homesteads that are just abandoned, and you can actually come in here and find properties that 10 years ago would have been 4 or 5 times the value that you can scoop up now. If you want to live in California, just saying, there are some unbelievable, we find in our Homestead Accelerator program consistently good properties in Northern California. So this area is beautiful. One thing that's so beautiful about here, if you're up in these mountains, every morning the cool mists come in from the coast, push through Mendocino, come through here, and you're on islands and you're above the clouds. Actually, I get that in wintertime on my property too. But you get it in this region. It's just stunning. It's a beautiful way to wake up every morning. So you can find great properties there. Same thing up in these regions too, though up here you're getting higher elevation. So you start to actually get into colder climates. Down here, you're going to be zone 8, 9, depending on elevation. Here we're mostly under 1,000 meters. Once you get up here, in this zone here through 3,000 feet, you'll get into really nice zone 6s and zone 7s, but the zone 8 and 9s are going to be down lower. Same thing up here as far as elevation goes, but here we're getting into 1,000, 1,400 meters. This is higher elevation, so you're going to be cooler, but still very cool, still very nice as far as growing in the greater scheme of the whole country. It's going to be a lot nicer. And up in here too, you're going to get into skiing. I have buddies that live up in these regions, and beautiful summer, but proper winter. And, you can go skiing and stuff like that, but still fairly good growing climate. The best of British Columbia might be found in this Crescent City region. And, you come down here, then it just becomes unbelievable. If I had to pick as far as the best climate, it would be definitely this area here than these, because these are higher up. But let's just look at some of these properties that we've got that my team laid out for me here. Let's look at Willits and see what we got in Willits. So we've got a south east aspect, which is the best aspect. Look at this little piece of paradise. You come in here, you've got a pond down in the center. You've got this aspect. So it was southwest aspect, actually, not southeast. Actually, you do have parts of southeast, like that's a southeast aspect. This is just a flat open. But look at this. This is an probably old dope grower farm. Could be a market garden, but this has got everything you need in a homestead. Private access in, big open landing, gardens around, old California hippie place. This is awesome. Gardens around the house, pond, pasture for your animals, or potentially more fields. You could do more fields up here. But you got lots of treed areas. The beautiful thing about this is like this forested area here is a northwest aspect. So in the summertime when the sun's setting in the lower hemisphere, you're in shade in the deep trees, but you see the sun coming through the trees, which is beautiful. But all these trees filter it out, because you're going to have oaks and big old trees, but even some softwood trees in here as well. Be mixed forest. Be beautiful. This would be the place you'd want to hang out, kind of close to the pond. Maybe down here too in the summer, because on this ridge you have a northeast aspect. So this would be actually probably the coolest place to hang out as far as temperature in the summer. But yeah, tons of place for growing, private access. This is that's a banger, absolute winner homestead. Everything you're looking for, ideally, you've got there. Maybe it was lacking a little bit in infrastructure, we got some more infrastructure here. We got a house, we got outbuildings, maybe a secondary rental or something like that. We've got a pond, big acreage here. We've got fields, we've got topography. That's the best. The best is when you've got lots of topography. This topography is better than the last because this is a southeast aspect. The other part had a good amount of parts on it in a southwest aspect, which in California is hot. However, like we saw here, if you have trees in those aspects, then that makes it a lot better. But this up here would just cook. You wouldn't want to be here in the summertime. It would be too hot. Down by the water, be better. Down here, even better. Just to kind of clarify some of what I was mentioning there on the aspects. And so here we've got a bit more southeast aspect, a little bit less topography, but still have it. We've got a main drainage that comes through this pond and collects at that pond. So, you could divert more water shedding to that pond if you wanted to, if it was necessary. Ideally, on a site like this, you also have a well. Up in the mountains, you get water. So if you have a drilled well and a pond, and you could do some rainwater snow capture off you wouldn't get snow here, but rainwater capture off your roofs. You could diversify your water systems here. But yeah, lots of big access. Okay, in one place you come off this road here. Wow, long driveway. That's amazing. So it's totally private. And, even here on the homestead, you're up high. So people on the road don't even really see what you're doing here, especially with these trees. So this is totally private, basically. And you've got this great landing here. When you've got a landing like this on a homestead, it pretty much is your vehicle to do everything. I talk about this all the time, but we talk about, 5 acres is really all you need to plunk down most of your intensive infrastructure. And so let's just look at this area here and just kind of talk about what we've got. And so we could easily get it on this property. We can easily get a nice wide open 5 acres, if not more, where you can put everything. You can put buildings. You've got a turnaround driveway access. You could have some high tunnels. You could have a greenhouse. You could have a market garden operation built into this. You could run some chicken tractors and sell eggs or meat on an area like this. But then you've still got lots of forests. You could do mushrooms in these forests. You could be hunting and trapping, and using the resources in this area is the best steward you can. But you could do it all pretty much there. All of this is just extra gravy. So anyways, that's a beautiful property. I could go on for a long time about that one as well. And then coming up here, right up to Crescent City, this is as Northern California as it gets. You'll be a cooler zone here. Also, you'll experience the mists coming through your property here. You're not above them here because you're close to the ocean. But it is beautiful, and it's an endless source of precipitation. But a property like this is kind of a blank slate. But the infrastructure is there. You've got good access in. There's a house. But they've done a good job with the way the driveways are set up here. Maybe you have a business fronting here, or who knows? You got a separate access in that's more private. You were to develop the main landing of this farm or homestead. You would do it in here, and you'd do some kind of turnaround driveway thing here, and then you would base all your infrastructure in and around there, and then open it up into here, and you probably wouldn't have to cut down any of these trees. Hopefully not. Better if not. But it looks like there's access, coming through here. So this is a blank slate, but you could do a lot with a property like this, and this is an unbelievable, beautiful place. I love this area up here. Smith River. This is a very different California experience. This is, closer to what people in Washington and Oregon will experience is when you're up in this part. That's what makes California so fantastic, and it just its entirety is that, you know, it's so diverse from one place to the other. And I would actually say a close second to that on the West Coast is British Columbia, and perhaps even more so. But we don't get as warm, but you can just see the topography and the variation in geographical experience in it. And in fact, that's what makes the West Coast in general so special, is to all of them. But yeah, that's California, folks. That was a 25-minute longer. But if you guys like these videos and you want to, you know, see me do other places, let me know in the comments what I should do next. We kind of guide by your suggestions. We are going to do all the states. So if you're going to ask, are you going to do this one? The answer is yes. And we may have done it already. So go back in the video playlist of this and check it out. We've done a lot of states and provinces so far. But if you also want to learn more about me doing this and how to use Google Earth to do these things that I show you all the time, check out the link in this video. And there's a little webinar there which will show you some tips and tricks on how to use this tool to save you so much time visiting homesteads. Because if you're just going out and talking to realtors and just driving out, it takes a lot of time. Learning these techniques will save you at least 90% of the time you would spend, and it'll make it so that you can do a large sampling of properties in a small and convenient environment in a short period of time, where you can sample hundreds, because you can't go and just sample hundreds of properties and visit. Well, you can, but it'll take you years. But this way you can sample it and really get the experience. And we'll show you some tips and tricks on how to do that. All right, folks, we'll see you in the next one.